Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz here, back again with another e-commerce conversation. I got Peter Askew here. Are you still in Atlanta?
I am still in Atlanta.
Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, with I'm going to butcher the type of onions. Is it Vidalia?
I'll pronounce it like the locals pronounce it. So it's more Vidalia.
Vidalia.
Almost like Vidalia. Vidalia.
Vidalia.
Or Vidalia. I tend to roll it off as Vidalia onions. Vidalia. It's almost very soothing to hear a local down there in South Georgia pronounce it. It's like butter. They just say it so, in my opinion, eloquently. It's Vidalia.
So I grew up in South Carolina. So hearing the Southern accents brings a little bit of warmth to my heart. This is a little segue, but I was having a conversation with someone about, like, in the South, people don't realize this, but there's a lot of different dialects. Like, the Appalachian Southerner is completely different than, like, the Charlestonian, Southern Georgia, Savannah.
Yeah, and especially up into the Atlanta area. It's funny, I lived in New York City, and I'm going to go off on a wild tangent here, but in around 1995, I didn't bring my driver's license up with me, so I went to go just get an identification card, and you went to the DMV to do it. And I tried to be as prepared as I could be prior to arrival. So I called to make sure I had all the proper paperwork. And so when I got there, waited in line a good 30 minutes, and then got up to the desk, and I was like, okay, here's all the paperwork that I needed for this. And she goes, oh, you're missing this one thing. And I was like, doggone it. I was like, I called and y'all told me to bring this. And she stopped me mid-sentence when I said y'all, and she out loud yelled, she said, y'all. And I stopped. I was in shock. And then I just stopped, gathered my belongings, and left, and went and grabbed the additional piece of paperwork that she needed. And that was the first time I ever recognized that I was actually just saying y'all, just without any kind of understanding that it just rolls off my tongue and it's part of my dialect.
Well, y'all is such an easy word to say. It befuddles me why anyone would say anything other than y'all.
Yeah. But it is. You make a good point, because I'm in the big city South, but there is still strong. We tend to pronounce Atlanta. I pronounce it Atlanta, not Atlanta. So yeah, and then you'll get pockets of Deep South here in Atlanta. Then outside you'll get a little bit, but gosh, down in Vidalia, it is very different, and just a little bit slower way of talking. Just they're farmers down there and working the land. But yeah, it is fascinating, and especially through Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, and then Florida, and then the entire different dialect down there. That is kind of an interesting aspect to chew on.
Well, I'm excited to talk onions, because I don't think I've ever had anyone on the show who's just pulling stuff out of the ground and selling it online. Like, when I think of, like, D2C spaces and all the trendy guys and girls doing their whatever, with their pretty fonts and their pastel colors.
Sure.
Onions is not something I think about. So I know your story a little bit, but how the heck do you get into selling onions online?
The domain expired, essentially. Back in around 2005, 2006, I got exposed to the expiration domain name market, primarily.com, and went down a rabbit hole that hooked me quite hard. And most domain investors buy, and they attempt to buy and then simply hold it for a few years and try to flip it for a higher price. I attempted that route. I was not very good at it. But once I started buying and just simply developing on interesting, generic keywords, terms, or phrases, things started working. And so, around 2000, when was it, Eric? 2014 is when Vidalia expired. Somebody abandoned it. It went back to the registrar. Registrar typically puts up names for auction prior to just re-releasing it out for open registration. So they'll try to auction every domain that comes back. from an expiration standpoint. I recognized it being a Georgia boy. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Back ordered it just to follow the auction. I wrote a blog post about this a few years back and kind of chronicled how essentially I was watching it. I was expecting the domain to sell for $5,000 or $10,000. So around $2,200, $2,200, I dropped in a bid just to see where it might go. And no other bidders came back. And so just a few, 5 minutes later, I was the winner of the auction. And I didn't anticipate winning it. So it was, $2,200. I was like, great. Okay, this is just another $2,200 I need to allocate for and maybe eat more peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or skip a few more lunches to pay for this one. But it kept nagging at me. Once it landed in my account, it was a very strange feeling. It kept nagging at me that there might be an opportunity there to build something.
At this point, were you running Dude Ranch?
Yes, I was
Okay.
running duderanch.com at that point.
Which is a similar story, right?
But similar, it expired as well. It was owned by a dude ranch up in New York State. They got acquired by they sold the ranch first. The new owner sort of ran the dude ranch into the ground and it went bankrupt and no one renewed the domain. So it went back to the registrar and I bought it and built a directory marketplace, essentially a yellow pages for dude ranch vacations out west, primarily. There are a few out east. But yeah, similar. It physically dropped and I bought it at auction in 2009. But I was looking, I had some spare time. It wasn't a true full-time job for me. So I had some open time on my schedule. So I was trying to cherry pick something that might be interesting and fulfilling and where I could be helpful. And although I didn't intend to purchase Vidalia, it came in. So I gave it like another look-see, essentially, after I got it into my account. And I don't know if you buy these pears, Eric, those pears from Harry and David. I love those. They're Comey's pears, essentially. And they sell a really, really good pear from Oregon. And it's all farm to door. So that kept crawling into my head. And I kept thinking, well, who's doing that very well for Vidalias? Who's the competition or who's serving that customer? I assume there's a customer there because this is a fairly big industry. There are a few farmers doing it, but not quite well. At that time, there was a farmer that had a PDF page on their website. And if you wanted Vidalias, you'd print the page out and write out your entire order on a piece of paper. You write your credit card number on a piece of paper, and then you'd mail the order to them with a check or cash. I'm not sure how, or the credit card number on the piece of paper. And then when they got it, when they felt like it, they'd send you some Vidalias. So, the thoughts going through my head was, well, I think I can clean that process up and make it a little bit easier for a customer. But essentially, back to your question, I simply got that domain through expiration and was mainly curious to see if there might be a business that I could build on top of it. And that's how I tend to build some of these projects that I do. The domain comes first, and then I try to shoehorn in a business essentially into each domain name. So domain comes first. Domain is the inspiration behind the business. And then I try to shoehorn in a business. Some work, some don't. But when they work, they're quite fun and they take you on very, very strange trips, but they don't always work. I'm not sure if that's answering your question, Eric.
No, I really can't think of a more fun way to being obviously sometimes it takes you in the e-commerce route and sometimes like with Dude Ranch, it takes you in,
correct.
Like what's that called? Software as a service or online?
One of my friends calls it internet marketing. He calls it IMaaS, internet marketing as a service. He runs a similar business on towing.com. So he has a marketplace directory for towers and does very well on it. His name's Drew Wash, and he and I build in a very similar fashion. We've never met each other outside of us meeting several years ago at domainer conferences, but they do. Directory marketplace, niche e-commerce is what I typically back into. Job boards is another. And the directory marketplace is a third one that I'm doing right now. Primarily I have three right now: Vidalia, Ranchworks, my job board, and then birthdayparties.com, which is my newest directory marketplace. I sold my ownership stake out of Dude Ranch to fund birthday parties. They take you on very different types of development, I guess backends, I don't know what you call it, but business models essentially. And just over the years, through just years and years of testing, I found those three models work well for me. I work mainly solo and I partner with a subject matter expert. So with Vidalia, I partnered with a farm down in South Georgia.
So how did you find that farm? Was it just smiling and dialing until someone's like, okay, I'll sell you some onions?
Yeah. So I found when I got that name and I was just curious enough to see where it could lead, I started just researching, found that there is a committee that represents all the Vidalia farmers called the Vidalia Onion Committee, the VOC. So I reached out to them. And I'm lucky since I'm so close, I can just drive down there. So I called them and said, hey, I'm passing through. I own the domain vidaliaonions.com, and I'm trying to see if there is a market for farm to door. They were referring to it as mail order, and they were intrigued, confused, because I own this domain. But I tried to comfort them as much, just trying to let them know that I wanted to represent the industry, and
Yeah, you're some city slicker.
yeah, I'm an Atlanta guy. I'm an Atlanta guy coming down to Vidalia, but I knew if I could get down there and get in front of them, shake their hand and talk with them to see if there might be a pain point in there. So I drove down and met them, but it was cold calling first. Then I just drove down and met them and just said, hey, I'm a web guy, but well, between you and me, I'm not an expert at e-commerce, but I mean, Shopify has made it so simple for anybody to run an e-commerce site. So I knew I could set it up there. I set it up on Big Cartel first and then moved over to Shopify eventually, but went and just physically met them and said, mainly just to see what did they think there was a need. Number two, I sort of needed their permission. They vigorously protect that name. For Vidalias, you can only grow them within a roughly 13 county region around Vidalia, Georgia. And so they protect that name. So it's
like champagne.
Very similar. So it's exactly right. So there's like a terroir in France for champagne. So there's a terroir in South Georgia for Vidalia. So you can only grow and call them a Vidalia if you grow them in that region. So if you're in Texas, you can't grow an onion, even the same seed, and call it a Vidalia because it's different soil, different water, different farming techniques. So I sort of needed their permission. And so once I met with them, we all kind of were on the same page. They encouraged me to pursue the mail order. They just said, yes, the lowest hanging fruit that we feel in this industry right now is mail order. No one is really doing a very good job of that. I wasn't sure if they were trying to butter me up or not, but I was willing to take it the next step. So my next step was, well, if I do this, I have to have an exceptional onion. If I start shipping subpar medium onions, I'm dead in the water. So can you guys help introduce me to some farmers in the region? And they helped from that standpoint. So they started driving around with me in my car and going farm to farm, just saying hello to farmers. Hey, I'm Peter. I'm looking for a partner farmer. Can you fulfill and ship here directly from the farm? Because at first I thought about bringing the onions up here to Atlanta, but I quickly shut that down. I was like, that's just ridiculous. Number one, the shipping cost would kill me if I tried to move those onions up to Atlanta. I was like, what am I going to do? Throw them in my garage and have tens of thousands of pounds of Vidalias and try to pack and ship out of here. So I realized I need a farm that can pack and ship direct. And I wanted to be able to say, these are coming directly from the farm, from the dock door at our farm and our packing shed. So we're looking for that. And just a farmer that I got along with. And so I met Barry's Haygood during that little like introduction tour. And he and I hit it off. And he was very open to the idea, very flexible. And so on a handshake deal, when we started it, he just said, okay, let's just try it. I don't care. Let's see what happens. And I tried to manage his expectations, just saying, I'm not sure how many we can sell. I mean, if we sell 20 or 30 boxes this first year, that'll tell me that maybe we're doing something right. I mean, no one's ever ordered from us before and they take a shot on us and order. But then we launched and we sold, 600 boxes, I think was the number we sold in the first year. Then it just kept doubling and doubling every year. We shipped 64,000 pounds last year. And right now, I'm about double where I was last year. So we may go over 100,000 pounds this year, possibly. Yeah, that's sort of the long story short. So partner with him. I run all the things they don't want to run: the website, the e-commerce, ShipStation, the UPS account, the thermal printer. I run all of that. I collect all the sales, and then I get the labels and I either physically take them down there with me, which I'll be down there when our season starts, or if there's a onesie twosie, I can forward it over email. I can just get the PDF, forward it to them. I've trained their staff down there. We have a thermal printer at the farm, and they can print the labels out there directly and put them on each box to ship out.
I mean, last season you sold out. What was it, in a week or something, or less than that?
Oh, we ran out, actually. We typically can ship until late July, and we physically just ran out. The yield wasn't as high as a typical season. We had some heavy rains during the harvest, so it impacted our yield, and all the farmers physically ran out in June. So we shipped mainly from May 1st until about June 20th.
So you work with this farmer.
Uh-huh.
What percentage of his onions are going to you?
Tiny. Yeah, he ships millions of pounds every single year, but he's smart. He understands. So when he is selling, he's typically selling to a grocery store. So he loses contact with the actual consumer. His onions are just going in the produce section in a grocery store. So they don't know it's A&M Farms with Aries Haygood. and Aries grew these onions. But Aries understood the importance of having that one-to-one relationship with customers. And he understood just the Amazon level effect, just being able to ship and having a one-to-one relationship with customers. And he understood that when I was sort of pitching it to him.
So your opportunity for growth and scalability is there's still a lot of upside in this brand, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. I haven't even carved into his. So he ships, gosh, last number I got from him was he was shipping 4 or 5 million pounds a year. I'm at 64,000 pounds a year. So in the early days, I was asking Aries, I was like, Aries, I'm not going to sell you out, or we don't have any problem with fulfilling orders. And he was just laughing at me. He was like, no, we're fine. If we start running low, I'll just plant another acre next year. That's fine. That has kind of been a nice luxury on mine. There is no cap that I'm running up against. We can grow this as much as we need to. And we've considered like downshifting into maybe selling a salad dressing or a relish or salsas, but our core business just continues to grow. And I love the simplicity about this model. We sell one product. We sell Vidalia onions in 4 different weight packages, and that's it.
And your season is from April until June.
Yeah, typically late April. This season, the official start date is going to be mid-April, but we'll start shipping probably late April and then hopefully until early July. It's looking like we should be able to ship till early July. It is entirely seasonal, but I accept pre-orders usually around February or so. If folks want to be at the front of the line, if they want their box to be processed and shipped the day we begin shipping, they can place a pre-order and be in the front of the line. So that's what we're accepting right now. We have pre-orders, and those are the numbers that I can look at and see, compare them to previous years and all that stuff.
I don't think I've ever worked with or chatted with someone with such a seasonal business. Like in June or August or whatever, are you just taking off and you're just like, all right, focusing on other projects? Or is there still work to be done in the off season?
Yeah. So what I typically do is tinker on the website, because every year I run across pain points for this entire business. So I'm always jotting down pain points that I don't want to address in season. So when the season shuts down, I go back into the back end of the website and start making changes. So our first season, here's how we operated. I would receive the order. I did not have a UPS account at that point. And this is just some of the early changes that we made. I did not have a UPS account. The farm had a UPS account. So I created a shared Google spreadsheet. I would manually go in and input all the orders into a shared Google spreadsheet. I trained a few of the staff down at the farm to open up the Google spreadsheet and manually type in every order into their UPS terminal. And they would manually print out each order. So after the first season, it was clear and it started working. I was like, okay, I need to fix that. We don't need to do any more of this manual stuff. And so then I moved over to Shopify, plugged into ShipStation, and then created my own UPS account, and then started working with the farm where I can just push the orders down there. And I tried to simplify it in many ways from their side, where they just get the orders, put stickers on boxes, and the sticker instructs them what type of box to pack. 5-pound jumbo, 25-pound mediums, 40-pound colossals. And each sticker represents one box, and each sticker instructs the packing shed on what to order. So all season, I'm always tinkering on things to fix. Like last season, we redid the website. We just reinvested some of our profit and rebuilt the website from the ground up. I love WordPress, so I just threw it right back on WordPress. And now we have like a farm news section where I can post, because our customers just love, they treat us like we are their farm. So they're always peppering me with questions. Hey, well, we noticed a thunderstorm come through. Are you guys okay down there? Or what's the crop look like right now? And just, smaller fun questions. So I was like, man, I'd love to have just a farm news section where I can just, when I go down there, take a photo of the field and just upload it and have Aries continue to educate me. And what am I looking at? What are things that you are looking for, Aries? Are you looking for disease? Or why is the top of that onion yellow? And he'll educate me, and then I try my best to pass that education on to our customers. And then storage tips and stuff. But yeah, so in the off season, I'm tinkering on the website, but that's not a full-time job. So I tinker on the website. I collect emails for the pre-order notifications. So the site mainly shifts from e-commerce to email capture. And then I downshift into like birthdayparties.com or ranchwork.com, which is my job board. Birthday Parties is the marketplace directory for birthday party venues in cities around the US right now.
So I want to transition back to the domain buying world, because this is something that you still live, sleep, eat, drink, whatever, like all the time. Where do you go to see the auctions? Is it just GoDaddy.com and look at the auctions, or where are you spending your time?
Three primary, I guess you could say four, but three primary places. GoDaddy Auctions is a big one. So it's not just GoDaddy, it's GoDaddy Auctions. Since they're the largest registrar, they have a large inventory to draw from. If somebody abandons the domain gets pushed through their auction house first. If no one bids on it, then it just simply gets re-released. Back in the day, registrars would hire a third-party company to auction their domain names off. Like Network Solutions doesn't auction their names off. They auctioned through a company called Namejet, which later acquired another company called SnapNames, which is why I said three or four. So Namejet SnapNames is another provider where you can bid on expired domain names. So there's GoDaddy Auctions, Namejet SnapNames, and then there's Dropcatch, which is a third company, if you want to say the third, that is a drop catching service. Essentially, somebody physically abandons a domain, and Namejet SnapNames or Dropcatch simply try to catch it at the drop. So the millisecond that the domain name comes available from maybe a third tier domain registrar, when that domain physically drops and becomes available, they own several registrars that can ping the registry to attempt to grab it at the second it becomes available, and then they'll auction it off if a back order has been placed against it.
What are the rules of getting a good domain, and how do you price it? Like, how do you know it's a fair price? And like, what are the things that you're like, no, I just got to pass on this because it doesn't meet my standards?
Yeah. So there's two frames of mind to this. If you come in from a domain investor, you simply want to buy. And if you can get the price or buy the domain at a reasonable fee, you just have to use your wealth of knowledge or tools in the marketplace. There's a site called NameBio that provides historical trends on domain sales. It's a very helpful resource for any folks that are new to this industry. So you could simply use historical data to look at what your gut might tell you a domain name might be worth. I did that for a little bit in the early days. I wasn't very good at it. I didn't have any fun really doing it. But then once I started trying to shoehorn in business ideas, I could justify a higher bid price. So Dude Ranch is a good example. I bought it for almost $18,000, $17,949. And the only way I was able to justify that price was because I knew if I could successfully build a marketplace directory, I could charge Dude Ranches per month or per year for a listing on the site. And I assumed I could sign up maybe 25 the first year, maybe 50 the next year, and charge them, $1,000 a year for a listing, and I'd drive them leads. So that helped me just spitball an idea of what price I could potentially afford for duderanch.com. So in my head, I was like, I could probably afford $25,000 to $50,000. I didn't have it liquid at the time, and I'd either drop it on a credit card, or I was a product manager at a software startup here in Atlanta. So I would just pay for it out of my salary and then work on the site nights and weekends from a development standpoint. So that, from a development standpoint, it helped me justify spending a little bit more and outbidding domain investors who are simply just trying to buy it and flip it. So that's helped me outbid in certain instances. Dude Ranch, calltracking.com I bought but failed on trying to build on top of it. Birthday Parties I bought for about $5,000. Yeah, so kind of two frames of mind. If you want to buy to flip or buy to develop, typically buying to flip is just like a piece of real estate you're trying to buy. I think it's near a big road, and there's some apartments being built across the street. It's possible maybe a big grocery retailer might want this piece of dirt. Maybe I should buy this right now for $10,000. Maybe it will be worth $20,000 in a couple of years. It's identical for domain names.
So what are some rules? Do you always focus on .com?
Yes. .com is, for me, the only domain that I focus on from a development standpoint and from an investment standpoint, but I only buy to build. There are popular new extensions out there, but I've experienced the confusion. If you're building a new product, look, Dude Ranch is another good example, or even VidaliaOnions.com. Man, if I went into the Dude Ranch industry and trying to sell DudeRanch.co to them, They would have scratched their head. They wouldn't even have talked to me, and I wouldn't even have gotten my foot in the door. But the sheer fact that I was on DudeRanch.com and I owned the name of the industry, it gave me that much more trust and authority to come in as an entire outsider and build a product to help service them, to really be this middleman, to help drive them leads from the consumers, but it is for me. .com is good, but I have several friends in the industry that do quite well on .co or .io, .ai. I've never had much success trying to buy and flip those.
And then when I see these names, they're all like I would describe as like descriptive generic names, right?
Correct.
It's not branded or anything like that.
Correct. The ones that I am typically attracted to are very descriptive, generic keyword descriptive that don't infringe any trademark. So the more generic, the better. And I found it's just easier to build and sell or promote or cold call if I own that good generic term where someone understands, very similar to, if you remember the not early days, but vanity phone numbers, where you already understand what you're going to get prior to calling 1-800-mattress. You can make an assumption. I'm assuming they're probably going to try to sell me a mattress if I call 1-800-mattress. Similar to Dude Ranch. Well, I assume that's going to have something to do with dude ranches. Maybe they'll point me in the right direction or have photos, or maybe I buy clothing for a dude ranch. Who knows?
In addition to that, the things you're building are typically not like affiliate content marketing, like review websites. I feel like that's kind of another source for generic domains, right?
Correct. I don't build any of the affiliate. I go direct. If I'm making sales, and tell me if I'm answering your question here, but if I get a sale, it's a one-to-one sale. The dude ranchers were paying me.
You're building a business, like that's the way I see it versus like a info marketing, kind of spammy website, which kind of tends to happen as well.
Yeah. So I buy the domain, I build it out. I have one-to-one advertisers. When I go to the Dude Ranch conference every year, prior to me selling my ownership stake in it, I'd go to the Dude Ranch conferences I go to 2 every year. The main Dude Ranchers Association. I'm a lifetime member now of the Dude Ranchers Association. And then Colorado has so many dude ranches in it. They have their own separate association and separate conference. So I typically fly to Denver or Centennial, which is south of Denver, for their yearly conference. And just get to know them on a personal level because they all attend. And they're just some of the most friendly people on the earth. I mean, most hardworking. That's a tough industry, that hospitality industry. Some folks have called it's like a bed and breakfast on steroids because you have essentially a bed and breakfast, but then you have 100 head of horses. You have seasonal staff you have to hire. Then you have to get a chef in there cooking 3 meals a day. All the insurance, because it's always compared dude ranches to summer camp for adults because you get to go do all the things you used to do at summer camp at a dude ranch. You get to go hike, mountain bike, fish, do archery, everything. It's so much fun. And the kids enjoy it as well. So it's a great family vacation. But yeah, I fully immerse myself in the industry. At least I dip my toe in to see if it's a good fit for me, because everybody is a little bit different. And I've tried some industries where I tried call tracking as an example. I tried my best to build a stripped down call tracking application because I was going to use it for Dude Ranch. I was going to help the dude ranchers understand how many phone calls. I can show you how many clicks I'm driving you, but man, what if I showed you I drove you 50 phone calls? What are those worth to you? But I tried to build it. Man, it went nowhere from a sales standpoint. I thought I got enough thumbs up indications from potential customers, but once I built it, didn't suit their needs, and I got nowhere trying to build it. But yeah, I never know truly until I just physically get in there. I would have never guessed that I would have enjoyed Vidalia this much, and I truly enjoy it. Nothing more I enjoy than going down there and hanging out with Aries and driving around in the truck with him and going and checking our fields and seeing what they look like, or watching the harvest. The harvest is about to start in a couple weeks. I'll go down and I'll film the whole thing. It's something very, I don't know if it's my DNA but it's just very, very comforting and very fulfilling for me just to help support this American farm. I mean, it's owned by him and his wife, and that's it. And I love being able to come in and be helpful to him. And then on the flip side, be helpful to these customers that are, in Lincoln, Nebraska, but they grew up in the South and they cannot find Vidalias out there. I'm jumping all over the place, I know, from different projects I know.
Well, I think this is, like important for me is a word you just use is helpful. And I think, our interactions, both in person and online on Twitter, you've always been very helpful in understanding domains and helping other entrepreneurs, know where to get good domains. And you'll share a lot of good ideas as well. What's your Twitter account, or where can people find you and support you?
Sure, yeah. My Twitter account's Searchbound, SEARCHBOUND. And gosh, you can find me online. My little homepage, I guess, is askew.org, ASKEW.org. But yeah, my little 3 projects primarily that I focus on: Vidalia, onions.com, ranch work, Walmart.com is a job board I run for the ranching industry, and then birthdayparties.com, which I've constricted the market right now just the Southeast, but it'll be expanding to Seattle and Phoenix and all around you, Austin, Dallas, Houston, in the coming months.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks for being on the show and sharing your expertise, your domain expertise. I loved hearing about it. It's just so exciting that people can build businesses in ways that you traditionally don't think about, and kind of, being open to inspiration as it literally comes across your screen.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much. Thanks for everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, cheers. Keep on growing.